You're watching Byline Wilmington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
We're back. Our guests are telecommunicator, 911 operator, Roscoe Harris and Deborah Cottle, who is the communications manager at the New Hanover County 911 Center. We're talking about this extraordinary job that they do every day. Are you a calm person?
Yes, sir.
You are basically.
I am.
Because I'm not. But in the eye of a storm, I get very calm. Are you?
Yes.
You're basically.
I'm a very calm person.
How about patience? You've got to be.
A lot of patience.
A lot of patience.
A lot.
I mean, dealing with the public, especially in stressful times.
Absolutely.
Has to be.
Well, we have to be. You have to understand that when people call in, we have to be at our best when they're at their worst. And so when people call in, they're at their worst point in their mind, at least in their life. And so we have to be at our best. So you need to have that calm and that patience, because they don't understand that you're not in this with them as deep as they are. Right. So we have to have
we
that.
We got to be the voice that when they're screaming and yelling, we got to be the one to bring them back down.
All right.
If we get excited.
Oh, yes.
Is that part of the
stops.
training?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That's constantly.
Constantly.
You've got to bring it down to a level.
You got to bring it down, get them to help you help them, because if not, communication stops and we're not going anywhere.
What's been the hardest, if you can pinpoint one, the hardest call you ever had to deal with? Is there one?
There's not one, because there's so many different categories. Like there are some hard calls I had where an officer got hurt, and that really affected me, which I didn't find out until later how much it affected me, because I thought I left it at work. When I realized later on that it was still on my mind when he was on a bridge and someone hit him, come full speed, and didn't see him out there and just slammed into him. Well, I didn't know how much that affected me on the radio, but I kept hearing his voice over and over again, calling for help.
After work, you mean?
After work, later on. And so there was that category, but there's also the category of people that we don't know what happened to them that had very serious things, like a child I had one time where chimney fell on him, a 5-year-old. So there's so many things that you just don't. There's categories. They can't say the worst, but they're all, they stay with you, like Deborah said earlier.
Do you have one that sticks in your mind?
I had a police officer on one Sunday morning that he normally worked with vice and narcotics, and he decided he was going to come in one Sunday and help him out. The shift was short. And I knew it was him whenever his radio would key up, because he had a lot of static to it. And I just sent him to 2 barking dog calls, and I thought, he come in to help him, and all he's doing is running dog calls on a Sunday morning. And the next time he keyed up, he didn't call his call sign out. And I called him, and then I heard it again, and then he come across, and I could hear gunfire, and he was being shot at. And that'll make your heart stop.
Yes.
Because, and in this instance, it was his gun that had been taken from him. So that weapon is loaded. It's not a chance of.
And you're like in the middle.
You're in the, and you can't see. You can only hear, and you
Right.
can't see. And it's like, he stands a good chance of getting hurt. I've got to make sure I get all the help there that I can.
Have you ever second guessed your performance?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, a lot.
Absolutely, yeah, because you want to be the best, and you have to make sure, and you're always thinking, well, did I do it, as efficiently and as effectively as possible, and did I get help there in time, and what could I have done to make it better or faster or safer for them, so yeah, you are second guessing that, but it's for the betterment of the people you're serving, though. So
and yourself.
And for us,
because you're
yes.
constantly growing. You can't stop growing in this job.
Absolutely.
You always got to aim for better.
Do you get a lot of ridiculous calls?
Yes, sir.
The director of emergency management, Warren Lee, said that you actually get calls, people saying their cable is out.
Yes, and I would like to say this for anybody that's listening that may have been one of those that called in with a ridiculous call. At the time, it's not ridiculous to the person calling.
Right.
It is a situation, and they're looking for somebody with an answer.
Right.
And 911 seems to have all the answers. So when in doubt, call them out.
And when if somebody called and said, "Hey, my cable's out," what do you say to them? Call your cable company? I mean,
well, you don't just come out and say call your cable company, but you see if there's a way you can assist them to get that done, especially if they're called on 911. We want to try and get them off the line as quickly as possible, but at the same time, realizing that for them, that really might be an emergency for where they are, in their mindset anyway. And so we have to just take that into consideration. But yeah, we try and lead them to the right place and encourage them to maybe write down a number. We can have a directory. We can get a phone number for them, real briefly and say, here's a number. Maybe you can try that number later. You know.
I know the answer to this because I've talked to folks at the 911 center, but I want other folks to know what happens when you get a call and then there's nobody on the other end.
If there's nobody on the other end, we've got several policies in place, and one of them is you
In other
listen.
words, just for our viewers, I'm talking about when an operator's phone rings, that you answer the phone, 911 center, and then there's...
And we don't hear anything.
You don't hear anything.
We don't hear anything. We're going to first listen, again, announce this is 911. Do you have an emergency? And listen. If we don't have anything on the other end, we're going to first test it as a TTY teletype for the hearing impaired to make sure it's not one of those citizens trying to get a hold of us. And then while we're doing that, at the same time, we're going to be sending a police officer out to check the location. See
you
if
have
we
to
can
do
make
that every time
every
because
time.
you don't know.
Because we don't know. It could be a domestic violence
Never
situation. It could be someone that can't speak to us. It could be a medical emergency, and we're just not going to run that risk.
That's right.
We are going to send someone.
Are there legal restrictions in place to using 911? I mean, are there some... It's not illegal to call and say my cable's out, but are there some parameters that are just not acceptable to call?
Oh, absolutely. And there's an abuse of 911 that can definitely be incorporated if somebody's abusing the system, for whether they're angry or they really believe they have an emergency. If they've been served by law enforcement or whoever, but they continue to abuse it, yes, then law enforcement can take action.
And do you report? Is it your job to report something like that?
Well, the officers, they know because we
Yes.
keep telling them, okay, so-and-so is called again, the continuous calling.
Right.
They handle it from that end. As a communications manager, I personally would never say, I'm going to stop you from calling 911 because last night you had too much to drink and you called us 15 times, and I don't want that to be, right, that happens.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want somebody to say, you can't call anymore, because the next time you may not have had a drink at all and you have a real emergency and now you're scared, am I going to get in trouble if I call?
Absolutely.
So we leave that totally up to law enforcement.
I don't know
make
if you
that
could
call.
answer this, but what percentage of the calls you handle would you say are true emergencies?
I would estimate, I mean, just
Yeah.
off the top of my head, I would estimate about 85% of them
Really?
are true emergencies, yes, that I handle.
Would you agree with that?
Maybe a little bit less, but
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
All right, we're going to come back and talk about, you work some long hours and some
Yes.
pretty strong schedules. We're going to come back and talk with our 911 emergency telecommunicators about that when we come back. Stay with us.